Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Pleased to have with me, albeit online, Bob Archer of Newrange Gold, which trades under the ticker symbols in Canada under the TSX Venture Exchange, NRG, and in the US on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol NRGOF. Good morning to you, Bob.
Good morning, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thanks, and you?
Just fine, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks for taking the time to speak with me today. Perhaps you could start with an overview of the company's flagship Pamlico project in Nevada.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pamlico is quite a unique project in Nevada, given that it's been in private hands since 1896 and really has seen very little modern day exploration. And going back to the 1880s, it was a fairly major high-grade gold-producing district, and it was very active at the time. It was one of the highest grade gold districts in Nevada at that time. And but now, having been dormant for a number of years, we're trying to reactivate it, and had some very good preliminary success, and looking forward to advance that further this year.
Fantastic. Well, given the current state of the world with the outbreak of COVID-19 in North America, what has Newrange been able to do operationally at Pamlico, and how different is that from what the company would have done with no virus?
Things haven't changed too much, really, other than just timing. We had a small crew on there sampling the underground workings, because we have probably more than 300 underground workings from the old timers mining. And we've been sampling those and surveying them. And that's ongoing. The crew lives in Hawthorne, which is only about 12 miles away. And so, there's no real restrictions or anything that impact that. We've hired a new project manager, and so they're just getting things organized and getting ready for the drill program, and identifying which sites we can use from previous existing permits, and which sites will need to be permitted going forward. So the delays in getting started, really just come down to restrictions since hotels and restaurants in Hawthorne have been closed. So there's nowhere for a drill crew to stay should we mobilize anyone down there. So that has all been put off until the restrictions got lifted. But in the interim, the guys are just continuing doing what they were doing, and so we haven't really seen any major change in our program.
Oh, good for you. Well, understand that you don't have a crystal ball, but when do you actually think the drilling program may be able to start?
Well, yeah, I mean, given the restrictions and how they keep getting extended, right now, I think most places are looking at possibly the end of April. So, I think optimistically we could start in May. And we can start with the permits that we have, and while we're applying for new permits, those typically take about 30 to 45 days. So, we should have all the rest of the permits in place before the first pass is finished. And we'll be doing reverse circulation drilling down Pamlico Ridge from the Pamlico mine in the northwest right through down to the Good Hope mine in the southeast. And in addition to that, we'll be using diamond drilling to test some of the induced polarization geophysics targets that we generated from the survey that was completed just in January. So it should be a fairly extensive program. And we're anticipating about 5,000 to 10,000 meters, although the program hasn't been finally or completely finalized yet. But yeah, I mean, it should be if we can get started in May or even June, it should be an exciting second half of the year for sure.
Well, for sure, we look forward to following the progress in Pamlico. You also recently acquired another land package in Red Lake. Can you talk to us about that deal and what prompted you to take an interest in the property?
Yeah, so we're in the Red Lake district, not exactly in the Red Lake belt itself, but over in the Bertucci belt, which is the next greenstone belt east of Red Lake. Very similar geology, but Bertucci is about 3 times the size. And yet it's less explored than Red Lake because it doesn't really have any major road access other than winter roads into Springpole deposit, which is just east of us. And this is an area that I'm very familiar with, having worked there in the past. And the target is folded iron formation, which is a highly magnetic rock that can often be a good host for gold mineralization. And the target model for this is the Musselwhite mine, which lies about a little less than 200 kilometers north of here. And that's owned by Newrange Gold Corp. And I worked on the pre-feasibility study there in the mid-90s. And then the project went into production in 97. And since then, past production and reserves total about 7 to 8 million ounces. So it's a sizable deposit. And this North Birch project that we have is one that I actually staked myself in 2002 and then optioned it off. But then around about that same time, 2003, 2004 was when I started Great Panther Silver. And so my focus changed. The project never got drilled, and it's basically sat there ever since. So we now have a chance to go back in there and test the iron formation, test these targets. And even though it's early stage, it's a great model, it's a great target, and I'm very excited about it.
Fantastic. Well, taking a step back for a second and looking at the overall gold market versus just Newrange, and with gold currently above $1,600 and Goldman Sachs boosting its forecast to $1,800, does Goldman have it right, or are they being too conservative? Is it possible that we could see $2,500 gold by the end of 2020?
Well, personally, I think 2,500 might be a bit of a stretch, certainly by the end of this year, although, I think it's conceivable that we could get there before too long. This year, I think 1,800 is certainly within sights, possibly even by summer. And by the end of the year, I don't think it's inconceivable that we could see 2,000, certainly on, first couple of attempts, whether we stay there or not right away. Gold has a tendency to test these psychological barriers, 2, 3, 4 times before it actually breaks through and stays there. So, but I think 2,000 this year is certainly achievable, and 2,500 going forward. I'm certainly bullish on gold for the longer term.
We're equally bullish, and with gold where it is and predicted to go higher, why do you think it is that Newrange and other junior mining companies perhaps have not benefited as of yet?
Well, basically what we've seen in the last month is a massive liquidity event where people have just almost panicked, really. And, we're seeing the sell-off in the broader markets. And so people are selling everything, including physical for a while, and ETFs and, futures markets and so on, reflecting those prices. And so, as that starts to shift, and we're seeing a drop in supply of gold and silver, and the gold prices has bounced back up again. And some of the majors are reflecting that a little bit, but as gold will lead the way out of this drop, which it typically does, the majors will be the first to benefit, and then that'll basically trickle down the food chain to the juniors. And even though the juniors will be the last to respond, they typically have the best leverage to any rise in gold price and rise in market sentiment. And so that's where the most money is made. So, it's in these times of low metal prices and low share prices, rather that, investors should be looking to position themselves and get ready for that run up.
So you think this is a good opportunity for investors to begin taking positions in companies like Newrange and other juniors?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Well, as a mining exploration company with no revenue, I'm sure investors are going to want to know, how well prepared financially are you to both, one, survive the current crisis, and two, do more than just survive the current crisis and actually enhance operations?
Well, we did a small financing just before the end of the year, such that at January 31st, we had about $1 million Canadian in cash. And we've been monetizing our projects in Colombia, since those are non-core assets now. And through that, we've benefited from some shares in companies that we've sold the project to. And so we had also at January 31st, date of our last financials, we had about $1.8 million in marketable securities. And so, that will continue as we are able to sell some of those shares and also continue to monetize the balance of the assets in Colombia. And in addition to that, as we get drilling again, we're confident that with the solid news flow coming out, that we'll be able to exercise warrants and options. And we have about $1.3 million that we can bring in from that. And so, all of that together should bring in about $5 million or so by the end of the year or early 2021. And so, we'll actually be in a very good position this year to continue to fund the exploration without having to go back to the market.
Well, I would say you're in a lot better position than a lot of your peer companies, for sure. Well, that sort of wraps up my intended questions, but what else should we know about the company that we may not have thought to ask you?
I think we've covered most things. As I pointed out, we had completed an induced polarization geophysical survey on the project in Pamlico, that is just in January, and that has given us some insight as to a geological model, what we think is actually happening there with regards to the gold mineralization. And so we'll be testing some of those anomalies with the upcoming drill program, as well as drilling down Pamlico Ridge where the previous mining has taken place. So, with all of that going on, there's potential to make a fairly significant discovery at Pamlico. And, given the excellent infrastructure of the project just off the main highway, a few miles out of town, it's got great metallurgy, and we're really excited about it. It's quite a unique opportunity in Nevada, and we'll be working up at Red Lake this summer as well. So lots going on, lots of news flow once we get back active again, and it should be a really interesting and exciting second half of the year.
For sure, very exciting. We look forward to following the company's progress throughout 2020. I thank you for your time today, and I wish you continued safe health.
Thanks very much, Jim. Same to you and yours, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks a lot. Take care.